My name is Parker.
And I'm Mike.
This is Seid.
And this is the Try Hard Podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to yet another very exciting and very special Try Hard podcast. We have a T100 / Clash Miami episode lined up for y'all today. But before we get into it, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this podcast, the Naperville Acupuncture Center. If you're in the Chicagoland area and are looking to get some dry needling or acupuncture done, I cannot recommend them enough. I've been going to go see Frank and Angela every week for the past couple of months, and they have been key in keeping me healthy and enabling me to elevate my training. As a special offer, if you mention my name or this podcast during your visit, you'll receive a discount on your very first treatment. All right, back to the show. Well, as you guys heard, we have a fourth voice joining us for today's Try Hard podcast episode. It's not the Try Hards, it is the Quad Hards, I guess.
Quad
Hard. Joining us for today's episode is Mr. Stephen Goad. Now, Stephen is one of my athletes who's currently training for Ironman Texas, but he is from Florida, and well, wouldn't you know it, he decided to hop into the Clash Miami race. So we thought we'd have him come on the episode today, give us a little rundown of his race and maybe the pro race as well. And yeah, Steve, you want to introduce yourself? Give us a little background, how you got started in triathlon, and then start talking about, I don't know what it is, the T100 Clash Miami, whatever you want to call it.
All right. Thanks, Parker. Yeah, I mean, happy to join you guys. Parker said if I didn't do this, I had nothing but tempo work tomorrow for myself. So
you mean VO2 work?
Yeah, he said it wasn't going to be good. Just kidding. It's cool to be on here. Yeah, Steve Goad, born and raised in South Florida, 32 years old. As Parker mentioned, training for Ironman Texas. This will be, I think, my 5th Ironman. So got into triathlon only about 2 years ago. Ironman for about like a year and a half, a little over a year and a half. So did like Olympic, progressed into 70.3, and then just said, let's go to Ironman there. So been addicted ever since. So it's been an awesome ride. Been with MVDM since just before Ironman Florida, working with Mr. Parker here. But yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell here. So getting into the race, I did catch a little bit of the pro race. I kind of had to show up, but I got there around like 1:30ish, 2 o'clock. So I think it was just after the swim start, as they were just hopping onto the bike with the men's pro leg. It was already extremely hot though. So even at the check-in, the sun was bearing down. I think they said that on the track there, a little bit different with our race today. We'll probably get into that, but obviously with the men, like you guys saw, it was all laps, just on that NASCAR track on the speedway. So I think they said it felt like 110 degrees, and it definitely felt every bit of that. There wasn't a ton of cloud cover yesterday, so I hung out for a little bit, but at a certain point I was like, I'm just gonna go sit in the truck. I think I mentioned to Parker, I sat in my truck in the AC for a little bit and watched it that way, and then finished up watching at an Airbnb down in Miami, because I'm like 2.5 hours north of Miami where I'm at right now. But yeah, I mean, you guys have any questions about the pro? I mean, I listened actually to, what was it, episode 5 on the way down there. So you guys crushed that episode. It was really cool listening to your predictions and getting more and more familiar with T100 on the way down there. So
I thought it was a pretty, the race didn't pan out quite as I expected. Obviously Magnus won, and I think all of us had Magnus in the top 3 at least, but none of us had Sam Long in the top 3, or did you? Yeah.
I had him at 3rd though. Not
okay.
But I had picked him. Yeah. I
It was
figured got to go with at least one. I had him and Jason West, but I figured one American would probably perform well. But
yeah,
yeah,
Jason West kind of he wasn't his day. He had a good
yeah.
run
Yeah,
though. He had the fastest run.
Did he really still?
Yeah.
Yeah, he
That's
did.
incredible. After like, not to say that he did poorly on the swim, because he actually did pretty well on the swim. I think it was just maybe the bike that held him back. And then when he started the run, it looked like he kind of, like Jan was saying, he started the run gingerly, but still ran faster than everyone else, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like that bike course is just like you really need to be pushing power, and Jason West really just doesn't have that. He can't really hold that top end power like the other pros can, and then I think that's what really limited him in that race because that's what the commentators were really like mentioning, like he just wasn't having the best bike day at all, but he still had such a fast run, just like so crazy how fast he is on the run.
Yeah, Steven, so you got to see the swim probably, right? Did you get to see the full swim, and then did you leave after that, or did you just see part of the swim?
I think they were like pretty much getting to T1 when I was arriving there. Unfortunately, that was like
Oh,
getting the
okay.
check in, signing in. It was most of the bike. And then obviously once I got back, got was headed to the Airbnb, and once I was there seeing the Sam Long push, I was like, I got stuff
Yeah.
to do, but I wish I was there in person to see that whole entire thing take place because that was epic to even see when I was streaming it. So I was there, probably saw. I was trying to catch as much as I could because I kind of made that determination to get out of there because of how hot it was and to keep fluids going in me for this morning. But I was probably there for like 45 minutes or so only. So saw most of the bike. You don't realize how big that speedway is too when you're there. Like I was actually even growing up in South Florida, that was the first time I'd been to that speedway, like actually on the premises, and it's way more massive than you'd expect. So
Yeah. So your course for the bike course at least, I'm guessing that it wasn't 22-ish laps for you guys around the track. Did you have to leave the track and go elsewhere and then come back in? I think
yeah,
I remember seeing a course map like a year or two ago, but I didn't know if they changed it.
exactly. Yeah, most of the bike was not on the track. It was just
Okay.
kind of like on the first like initial track out, like leg
Yeah.
out, and then, yeah, I'd say probably 85-90% of it was not on the track.
Well, do you want
So
to take us through your kind of race day? So, how it went, kind of what, yeah, your experience, and if you want to start with what distance you raced, and then how the day panned out for you.
yeah, for sure. I mean, initially it was in terms of just Clash and the whole event, it was pretty awesome. I mean, pretty well organized, really well structured and organized, but still had like a laid back feel. So it was really cool. I'd never done a Clash event, so that was my first one. But yeah, kind of getting there. It wasn't actually. I mean, I grew up in South Florida, so it might be a little biased. We're used to the hot and humid, so I didn't think it was that hot at all this morning. It definitely got increased throughout the race day, which I'll get into, but not too hot at all. Sun didn't come up until like right around like 7:30, 7:35. So I'm glad I didn't go with like a heavy tint on the swim goggles. But yeah, basically the swim, as you guys might be aware, it was in this. I forget the backstory on it exactly, but I think they said it was initially dug out like at most type speedways for like a bunker reinforcement. It just became like
Yeah.
this internal like pond or like I guess oversized pond. But that's where the swim was. It was a two lap swim, pretty calm waters compared to when the pros were swimming yesterday. The men and the women, it was pretty darn smooth, like not bad at all. There was no Aussie exit for us, unlike the pros, so we didn't have to do that whole deal. It was just 2 laps. Uh, like most races, pretty jumbled at the start, but then you're kind of able to find your rhythm and break away and do whatever your thing was there. But yeah, the swim was pretty like not bad at all. Kind of reminded me, my first Ironman was out in Iowa at Grays Lake. It's a way bigger body of water, but I hadn't swim kind of waters that smooth in a race in a long time. Oh, and the distance was Miami distance, so I should have said that initially. So it was just under a mile swim. So I guess I'll just say pretty much a mile swim, 30-mile bike, and then an 8-mile run. So
And you have a
um,
swimming background, correct?
I grew up in the water, so I have like my dad did triathlon for a little bit back in the day, and he was a big swimmer. diver as well. But my background was solely just I was a big surfer growing up and dove a little bit as well. So really comfortable in the water. But I'd say in terms of like first, I remember hopping in the pool 2 years ago and like, wow, I know absolutely nothing about actual swimming and technique and breathing. So I'd say first real laps, besides messing around like a high school lane back in the day, were 2 years ago. So grew up around the water, which probably made it a little easier, but no official swimming background. So,
And was the
but
water hot? I know it was really hot yesterday for the pros. Was it hot today too, or was it like decent and like okay for the swim?
so I think the swim wasn't bad at all. Even in the swim, not bad. I mean, visibility was good. The sun didn't get in your eyes, so I'm glad I kind of went with more of a clear tint goggle. But I think the temperature was like mid 70s, like lower 70s, mid
Oh,
70s. But
Did you wear,
down
was
here,
it wetsuit legal?
no, it wasn't.
Okay,
And I didn't have a swim skin, so I don't have a swim skin right now. I just decided to go with the tri suit.
there you go.
Um, so so that it seemed to work out fine. I'll probably invest in the swim skin again. Kind of taught me that. Might as well just have one in the quiver there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Ironman
he was.
Texas. Ironman Texas is usually right on the border, so if you plan on getting one, you should probably get it in case for Ironman Texas. And then especially, I mean, you're gonna with your goal of going to Kona eventually, you're gonna need one there, so you might as well.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm gonna. You beat me to it. See, I'll be getting one here shortly in the next week or two. Probably get one ordered. So expect a consultation on best ones there shortly. But yeah, Sid, he wasn't really a factor with the swim at all. It did creep up though. So on the bike, I mean, I guess getting into the bike, I mean, transition was, I won't say it was lengthy, but it was a good little jaunt to the transition area out of the swim. Um, and then yeah, getting onto the bike, like I was mentioning, the bike was most of it was not on the track. It was kind of cool for the first like initial legs, like being on the track, feeling like Ricky Bobby for a second. But you're out and about away from the track pretty quick. But the actual rice bike course was pretty sweet. I thought it was a fast course. Stayed pretty cool throughout most of the bike. Um, I don't think it was strange because on my watch it clocked it actually under. So the bike actually clocked a little bit under 30 miles on my watch, and then the run course a little bit more than 8 miles. And a couple of the MEDM team members thought the same thing as well. So could have been us that were off, but yeah, it just seemed to be. And we weren't complaining with the bike being a fast course, being a little bit under. That was pretty cool, but yeah, cool in terms of temperature wise. And there was some decent crosswinds at you on certain parts of the bike course too. But it was a 2-lap course um, on the bike there, pretty much just all circulating around that area of the speedway. And yeah, I don't know if you guys have any specific questions on the bike, but you guys would have Parker would have been flying. I'm sure all you guys would have been flying on the bike course today. It was pretty fast. So
How was your what was your this is the coach in me. How was I haven't done a race recap, so I'm using this podcast episode as a race recap as well. How
and
was
I just
feeling
dropped
on
you
the
a bunch
bike?
of notes too.
Yeah, you don't have to do that after this. This can be your notes if you
Oh,
want.
I already did. You're gonna have to
Oh,
read them
perfect.
anyways.
Perfect. I'll take a look.
I didn't
But
mean to cut you
how
off.
was feeling on the bike, especially how did you handle that in the heat? Did you take any extra precautions with extra sodium? What did you do to kind of counter the heat or to when you take that into account?
Yeah, exactly. So I had two smaller bottles, each with like 100 grams of carbs of raw fuel. So love that stuff. It worked great. This just worked great throughout the whole race. I used it on the run as well with a hand canteen. So I had those. I had 200 grams carbs of raw fuel there, and then I kept like a larger Gatorade squeeze bottle just loaded with like electrolyte tablets too. So and I had some Mortons in my couple Morton gels stashed in my tri-suit if needed. I didn't end up using them on the bike. Popped one right after the bike, but I didn't actually use the Morton there, and I had some sodium electrolyte tablets on the other side of my tri-suit too. So ended up going through both of the bottles though, so I got probably roughly like between 185 to 200 grams of carbs of raw fuel during the bike. My bike was like I think 110 or 115, so
Perfect.
downed it all, and then I did get through a little, probably like a third of the um, electrolyte mix there, the Gatorade bottle. So and it was pretty cool. Like I was pretty stoked that it didn't. I knew the heat was going to pop up. Having grown up in South Florida, when it cranks up, it comes quick, and it'll get hot, especially on that track. Because the run, I mean, skipping somewhat ahead, the run was pretty much all on the track. I'd say probably kind of flipped. So the run was like what was it? No, it was only 2 laps as well. So 2 laps, and there's like a little leg at the finish line, but that was nothing. But yeah, it was all, I'd say probably like flipped 85-90% of the run was all on the track. So it was hot.
Cool.
But the bike didn't really spike up at all, which I was pretty amping on. So
Awesome.
you guys would have liked it. Kind of a good thing for Ironman Texas too, right? Like I love that bike course. I thought was pretty cool. That was my first one last year because that's just like I love how they block off that highway. You can just kind of just cruise and go for it on that one highway they block off. So
Yeah, and having those flat roads is nice too. How were the road conditions out there?
not horrible.
Oh, sweet.
Not bad at all. Couple of really tight turns, probably like one of the tightest U-turns I've ever had in racing yet. Like actually had to come out of the pedal, like detach from the pedal on this turn.
Really?
Just to, yeah, because I heard your voice. I was like, all right, like some people weren't detaching, some were, but I was like, can't go down here. Something stupid happens. Um, so yeah, it was a pretty tight U-turn there, but overall conditions weren't bad at all. A couple little like dips here, but nothing major. So
Nice. So were you happy with your bike time? Was that like kind of where you were expecting to come in, or was it faster than expected?
so for the effort that I was putting, kind of setting forth, like obviously you get done and you're like, couldn't really hammered it out. But in terms of like what we were going into and trying to accomplish, yeah, I was pretty pumped. I mean, this guy Parker's had me on. I've been like obsessed with the trainer ever since getting the Zwift trainer. So you definitely see the results there. So I've seen probably feeling the strongest and the most fluid on the bike I've ever felt. So it was really cool to kind of because I've just been locked into that trainer to kind of see it translate to actual outside conditions. Like, oh, this is what it feels like again. But yeah, I know I
Yeah.
could have pushed a little harder, but overall, I mean, I was pretty stoked on it. So
Yeah, we didn't really have Steve taper into this either. He did. I'm looking at his training peaks right now. Yesterday, he did a 2.5 hour ride and set his 90-minute all time power PB and a 30-minute run. And I mean, he had a few easier days this week, but he also had a sweet spot workout on Tuesday with some big gear. So he really didn't taper and was not. At least you should not have felt super fresh for this one by any means.
yeah.
This was
Oh
more,
yeah.
as we mentioned, just a big kind of training day in preparation for Ironman Texas and to get some more, biking outside and some experience. He didn't want, Texas being the first real race he's done all year. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So overall, exactly. Overall, it felt in terms of like all the different facets we had going on going into it, and then also again just because I had a stupid like big toe injury, probably broke it, so it's been like turf toe for like knock on wood, it's been like pretty much healed for the past like 2 or 3 weeks. Didn't even feel it on the run today, which was awesome. But between that and like hamstring feeling funky, going into today, overall I was pretty pumped. But of course, you get done and you're like, oh man, you start looking at times and you're like, just pushed a little bit harder there. But yeah, I was pretty pumped. You guys would be stoked out. You guys would have loved it for sure. So
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
never done like a short race. I've only done an Ironman. So like, how different does it feel like compared to like? So you've done like what 5 Ironmans? You said
this will be my fifth coming up. But yeah,
you did
I
4.
actually
So like
did an Olympic.
it's a lot like quicker then, right? So like it's like such a shorter day, but you can like really push.
Yeah, my first triathlon I ever did was an Olympic, so it's been a while because that was like I feel like I didn't even know what triathlon was until joining MEDM, like before Ironman Florida. I feel like I've been telling Parker I feel like I just started triathlon. But so when I did my first Olympic 2 years ago, I really had no clue what I was doing. So I don't even count that as like it doesn't even sound like it doesn't even seem like applicable to today in terms of like a comparison in my mind. Um, but yeah, to your point, Sid, like when I was doing it, I was like, "Well, what's going on here?" It's like because you're so used to long distances, and it's
Mhm.
a totally different strategy. Some of those guys were flying out there. Like I think in my age group, which is like super competitive, so I got my work cut out for me, regardless of what race, like 30 to 34. So I think I think the top guy in my age group was pushing like just above 6 minute miles and on the run. So and flying on the bike too, to a degree. So yeah, there were some fast people out there. But in terms of the mindset, it's I was trying to flip back into it, but like I was just was saying, like not wanting to get hurt and kind of keeping the effort a little bit lower, but still pushing. That was kind of like counteracting that feeling of like just wanting to go faster and faster. But my mind was still definitely in long distance mode of like, okay,
Yeah.
let's wait. The race doesn't start till the 80-mile mark. Like, don't get too ahead of yourself. Like, I was like, and then on the run too. Like, I'll get into the run, but on the run, you're like, wait, what's going on here? I'm almost done. Uh, but but yeah, you're probably going into it. I said to Natasha after, I want to come back and do this after Ironman Texas. So,
Just
you're like,
Now, speaking of that, do you have any interest now to focus more on the half Ironman distance after this race, or do you want to continue? Because, like as you mentioned, you've been kind of focusing on Ironmans for the last year or two. After this race, does this spark your interest to do any shorter distance races?
I probably would drop down to maybe like a half Ironman here and there for sure. But I like the longer stuff and trying to push through that and just like
Yeah.
stay fast as we can for the longest of distances. So we have a goal in mind, but we're going to be having some battles in the near future, like me trying to push you to let me do some ultra running stuff. So
Oh boy.
yeah.
I've coached a few ultras. Yeah,
You're
it's
gonna coach. You're gonna coach a few more in the future with me. So I'll drop down to a half Ironman distance. I can see that. Those are pretty cool. But yeah, I'm kind of focused and love the Ironman distance and kind of seeing just how far we can take it while being smart. But yeah,
I'll be smart.
so,
Perfect.
So how was the run? You got off the bike and then you're staying mostly on the track or at least in the inner field and how was that?
yeah. So it started to get hot after that for sure. So I got off the even for this Floridian here. So I got off the bike and I think I immediately down to 160, Morton. So I immediately down to 160 and I popped I think 2 electrolyte like salt tablets just to be safe. So started with that and then yeah, I got into the run and you can kind of just feel that heat coming off that track right away. So I'd say there was little like intermittent points of cloud cover, but for the most part it was hot and it was probably radiating like a good like 5 to 10 degrees higher in terms of feel from what the actual temp was for mostly all the runs. So um and the actual run, yeah, it was 2 laps, and I'd say probably 90% of it was on the track, like 85, 90%. And the points that wore out, technically not on the track, were like right there, just right in the outskirts of the stadium. So um overall it was good, but it was hot. So you really had to try to monitor like douse
Yeah.
yourself with water, make sure you're actually intaking some water out of hand canteen. So I think in terms of nutrition, I think I did 75 grams in a hand canteen of raw fuel. Took like 2 cups of water at every station to just like douse my head. I had a cooling hat on, so it was doused in the head, in the back of the neck, and the body. And I think I took probably another 3 or 4 of those electrolyte tablets throughout the run too, at different points. So
Yeah, I'm taking a look at your notes. It says that you're putting some ice down the suit as well, or in the on the head and body. Yeah, I always find ice really does do wonders. Actually, so one speaking of ice and staying cold, my second ever 70.3 I did. It was a hot day, probably not as hot as what you experienced, but it was mile 11 on the run, and the aid station there, they had freeze pops. And oh boy, a freeze pop has never tasted so good in my life. I took that sucker. Oh, yeah. It was that was that was one of my best memories of 70.3.
I will say it wasn't as hot though. Like I still have yet to experience heat like so my first Ironman. Um Looking back, actually going out there and doing this, again, I feel like I started triathlon like 3 months ago. So looking back and doing this, my first one was out in Des Moines, Iowa. I think it was the first like inaugural full they decided to do out in Des Moines in 2022 in June. And they got like one of those weird like heat waves they'll get in the Midwest sometimes out there, and it was like 95 degrees. The bike was hot. The swim probably was even hot, and I just didn't notice it. But then on the run, it was blurring. So yeah, ice was critical there. I probably saw more ambulances on that run than I've seen, I don't know, in my whole life. I think the success rate was like a 50% or 60% success rate. I could be off there, but somebody was trying to tell me that something wild, some stat about that race. Like I forget who it was, but somebody was trying to tell me some wild finisher like lack of success rate they had there. So that was brutal.
Seid, that's what we have to look forward to at Ironman Maryland. Just saying.
No, Maryland's not that bad.
Some years it has been.
No, it was pretty hot. Like I was volunteering at the finish line this year, and it definitely is hot, but it's not 95. 95 is that's crazy. It definitely
Watch it be 95 this year.
Yeah. Seid's
Yeah.
gonna be like, oh, no big deal, and then we're just gonna carnage on the
hope
run
not.
together.
I hope not. Oh.
Yeah, I hope not for you guys' sake. But yeah, it was just like one of those random like just heat waves they had just like lined up with it when I was out there in Iowa. So I'll never forget that one. And actually it wasn't that hot down in South Florida. Like 2 weeks ago would have been beautiful. It wasn't it literally just started getting hot like a week and a half ago. So
Huh. It'd be interesting to ask the athletes how this compares to what was the super hot PTO, or was it in Austin, Dallas? What was the super hot one in Texas?
Edmonton. Oh, but
Edmonton?
there was one in Texas that was.
Yeah, wasn't there
Edmonton
one in Texas
real
that was
bad.
super hot? Yeah. It'd be interesting to see how this one compared to that one.
and speaking of that, I mean this is because of my listening yesterday to that wonderful podcast you guys did. But didn't the same women pro unfortunately have a heat, like how is she doing? Did she have a heat stroke or like she had heat exhaustion like the same and she had it the year prior, or am I off there?
Yeah,
Or-
no, you're right. I think it was either last year or the year before that. Emma Pallant Brown, actually 2022. I think Emma Pallant Brown passed out on the track. But yeah, same thing happened again this year. Kind of, she like at least got off the bike, and then yeah, they took her away in the ambulance. But I haven't heard anything since then. So
she posted on Instagram that she couldn't take the heat again, and she's not going to Singapore. And Singapore is definitely probably even a hotter or more humid race than Miami. So I know a lot of the girls aren't going to go to that one.
you know if they like, I know they have to race. I think what 5 or 6 races plus the final. Do you know if they have in that like stipulation? Do they have to finish, or is it just like show up and if you don't finish, it is what it is?
Oh,
Because
good question.
I don't
with
know.
Emma, if it's finishing, she basically misses Miami by not finishing, doesn't go to Singapore. She might have to race like every race after that. I don't.
It is 6 minimum, and there are 8 races, so
Yeah. So
Even just starting,
guess-
a lot of the guys also dropped out too. I think only 14 finished for the guys or something like that.
So
Yeah.
something like that. I think what Clement Mignon, Peter Heimrich, and there were quite a few others, but
Weiss
those are
did too, yeah.
Well, speaking of injuries, I'm not sure if you guys saw, but it looks like Kat Matthews strained, or she pulled her calf muscle, I think, or
Yeah.
she didn't tear it, but I think she pulled it.
Yeah, she put on her story that she pulled hers. Yeah.
And she's looking to do at least was going into this race. She was going to do T100 and the Ironman series.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that will impact her decision now. I'm sure, if anything, she would probably lean towards the T100 more so, just because she's contracted. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how the men's pros did it. That's like peak. Like when they were racing yesterday, it was from their start to their end. That's when you don't want to be outside. It's that hot in Florida. So especially like, and they're on the track like pretty much their whole race, right? So that was maybe like, let's enjoy this water time here, swim, because like between just all bike on that track with the sun being magnified in the run too, it's like I couldn't imagine. So
Well, I got a little nervous was when the women were biking in the dark. I was shocked at how dark it got. I was like, oh my God. I thought they were because there's that one part when they told Lucy Charles to kind of slow down because ended up being because of the ambulance. But I thought that they were gonna like stop the bike or something because it was just getting too dark. I got a little nervous about that.
yeah, and like any of the girls that wore the tin advisors, like you sent to us, Parker, that Paula just tossed her visor.
Yeah.
mid race. But yeah, a couple of them they wore the clear visors, and that was a smart move. But yeah, like some of those camera angles, it looked like you couldn't even see them.
Yeah. Well, that I think about wraps it up. We covered covered men's, covered the well, I want to give a quick shout out to Sam Long. I thought he had an incredible performance. I know we kind of touched on that, Stephen, how you mentioned when he put in that surge. But I was yeah, I was really hoping I was really pulling for him to close the gap all the way, but yeah.
Yeah, he really dug deep out there, especially like I got a little worried watching the swim because
Mhm.
saw the distance from like even just the middle pack to like the bottom three, and Sam was leading those that bottom three, and like Jan and the commentators are like, "Oh man, this looks rough for Sam Long." And hey, maybe more time in the water helped cool him off, but he came out like a bat out of hell on that bike and run, so that was impressive.
Yeah, no, he was mentioning that he kind of like he knew he was gonna be alone on the swim, so he's like he kind of like he said he was like looking forward to like not having any of like the race pack dynamics on the bike. I think that actually played like that helped him because he was just really pushing on the bike. I feel like and that just led him to that run. That was a crazy kind of like just like seeing him how far back he is on the swim. It's like it's really nuts how you can like come back from that to finishing second. It's like that's crazy. That's and especially on such a hot day. That was really fun to watch. Definitely the highlight of the race for me, other than of course Magnus winning, and I'm the biggest Magnus fan, so that was just great to watch. That's so fun.
I another note on Sam Long too. I mean, he just did a swim race, his like first ever swim race last weekend, and like he did pretty well, and it seems like his swim is improving, and he's definitely starting to maybe like bridge that gap. And even over the last few years, like his swim ranking in PTO has just moved up and up and up. But I was blown away that even with him improving that much, that he was still that far back. But
Hmm.
I guess I'm excited for the day when maybe Sam gets up to that middle pack, and then he might be able to just kind of run away with a race, or like he'll be like right there with like towing the line with Magnus the rest of the race. So
Well, sweet. Anything else you want mention, Stephen? About the race or your experience at Clash?
I'm trying. I mean, we covered a lot there. I mean, if there's any last questions from you guys, fire away. But overall, it was awesome. Like I was saying, just to find like actually get back out there and be like, oh, this is the outdoor life of racing again. So really cool. Thanks to their coach for giving me the green light to get out there prior to Ironman Texas. But besides that, it was cool. NVDM was there. They were constant shout outs to the team. One of our team members actually won the women's overall. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
So I think she's on our team.
nice.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Ron Nutrition had a big presence there too. So that was pretty sweet to see. So yeah, just that would be like the final note that MVDM was there representing well. We missed you guys, but yeah, the race was just it was hot. I mean, I'm born and raised in South Florida, so when it's hot and humid, I'm kind of like, all right. I mean, this is what we're used to. Now if it was cold, I mean, knowing maybe where you guys are from, like I mean, I lived in Boston for like 4 or 5 years, but I can't say that I ever really got that well accustomed to it. So, but when it's hot and humid, even for South Floridian still stinks pretty bad. So, but just it kind of taught me really already been doing this a little bit to an extent, but working with Parker and everybody else. But like if you see it's going to be hot, like just over prepare, get more carbs in you, get more sodium in there, and if you're kind of even further highlighted, if you're questioning it and it feels like you might need something, just take it if you can handle it. Like pop the extra electrolytes, extra sodium, get it in you sooner than later, like early and often type mentality versus not doing it and then you're done, you bonk out and you're done. So it's really good to see that and kind of prepare in case, hopefully not, but in case Ironman Texas is somehow hot. So
Let's hope it doesn't get too hot there. But speaking of raw fuel, if you want to try out the same fuel that Steven tried out and you want to support NVDM and the Try Hard podcast, you can pick some up for yourself using code NVDM. That should save you 15%. I'll have a link in the description box of whatever platform you are listening to or watching. This is on YouTube. as well. But I think that's gonna wrap it up for this episode. We'll be back next week with our usual weekend of training recaps. And yeah, big thanks to Steven for taking some time after racing and being in Clash Miami to hop on this podcast. It's actually the same day, so he raced, drove back, and recorded a podcast all in one day. So big thanks, Steven. We appreciate it. And yeah, you crushed it, man. Congrats again. And we will catch you all in the next one.
Yep. See you, Steven. See you,
All
Texas.
right.
Thanks,
Yep.
Steven.
Thank you,
Nice work
guys.
today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Have a good
Bye.
night.
See you
Night.
guys. It's funny. I told Allison that we had the podcast at 8, and she's like, "Oh, cool. I have a work call at 8." I was like, "Oh, that's like so sad." On Sunday.
My training peak note. Oh, 48 notifications.
Probably like 30 of them are from Seid.
No, his workouts. He's getting so tired now.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's good. I think today he trained with a friend of mine.
You know him? What's his face?
Yeah, Kyler.
Oh, I don't know about Kyler, but
Was it Kyler that he trained with today? He told me he's training with Kyler at some point.
no, he ran with what's his face? The other guy.
Hey, guys.
There he
Ew.
is. Looking like Bob Babbitt.
Dude, I know I am. Oh, it's growing. It's going
I
well.
love that we are all rocking hats right now.
No,
I just got out of the shower.
yeah, me too. My flow is just crazy. Like, I'm leaving it until a week before Texas. I'm just gonna trim a tiny bit, but I think I'm going with the cooling headband and the crazy flow. It's gonna be sick.
Nice.
Seid commented on his run workout.
Oh, yeah. Nothing much.
Insanely happy with this effort. Never was tired.
Hey,
Sending
hey,
music
hey,
of heart rate
hey,
paces.
hey, hey.
Really want to be able to hold 8-minute pace off the bike at Texas.
I think that's gonna
Thoughts?
happen.
Chatted. Yes. Alright. So
When the floats are like 145 heart rate and it's like crazy headwind, like feels good.
easy one. Yeah, I don't know what was up with Training Peaks this morning and Zwift.
Yeah, that was super annoying.
Yeah. Thankfully, we didn't have anything crazy to do. Maybe you did, Parker, but we just had some
Mike
aerobics.
May commented on a swim. Good swim. Oh, I've been doing that the breathing to the opposite side, and
Yes.
I really think that's been helping with my rotation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really
It's like it's funny until you start doing it and you start to get a little bit more comfortable with it. You don't like today doing more of that. I was like, wow, I'm actually getting such better rotation. When
Yeah.
I'm just doing a normal swim, just breathing, say, to one side, like you notice that rotation or lack thereof. Seid, we'll get you doing that. You can start doing that after you flip turn.
Yeah, I think you get a flip turning down first.
Yeah.
Wait, so Steven, did he do the sprint or did he do the regular Miami distance or what did he do?
actually let me pull up his Training Peaks. He also was at Florida.
Oh wow.
Was he the other one that we had the picture with, Parker?
No, I didn't get a picture with him, but he was. I'm not sure if you remember, but he had his dog. Here he is.